If you're looking to get started with Facebook marketing, then today's episode is for you. My guest is Ben Heath, owner of Lead Guru, the Facebook marketing agency with dozens of clients and 5 years of experience of successfully marketing on Facebook and Instagram. It's informative, it's actionable, and I know you're going to get a whole load out of it. So stay tuned. Hey, what's up? And welcome to another episode of the Impact Unlimited podcast. This is the show where I sit down and interview industry-leading experts with an aim to equip you with both the skill sets and the mindsets to become an impactful entrepreneur. So if you want to become a better leader, build bigger businesses, get more done in less time, and create an impact in the world, then look no further and let's get started. Awesome. Well, I'm here today with my friend Ben, and we've got a great episode coming up for you. Welcome to the show today, guys, and welcome to the show today to you too, Ben.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Oh, good. I'm really excited to dive into the content today. I've seen your stuff on YouTube, and it's just really, really excellent content. And so I know you're going to have a whole heap of value for people that are listening today. What I love to do though, right, before we get into the meat of stuff, is I love to do a couple of little icebreaker questions just so warm the audience up and get them to know you a little bit more. So a couple of questions I've got for you today. Do you have a favorite quote?
A favorite quote? Yeah, probably. My favorite quote would be, I think Jim Rohn said this when he said, "Don't wish it was easier, wish you were better."
Oh, man,
I think that's
awesome. Love that.
That's a solid one, because when you're sort of knocking your head against things, trying to get things done and trying to succeed, you can get really frustrated and think, this is just too hard, I can't do it.
Yeah.
You sort of run that through your mind. You go, no, I shouldn't be wishing it was easier. I just need to wish I was better and make that happen. So yeah, that's probably the one that comes to mind.
That's so good. No, I think it's so applicable for entrepreneurs as well. It's something we in our community talk about all the time. What defines an entrepreneur is the ability to overcome problems, right? And so, so true. So good. Love it. And then final one before we dive into the meat. If you could time travel forwards or backwards to any time you wanted, when would you go to and why?
I think I'd have to go and see one of the massive figures in history and just see them operate. So it'd probably be like a Julius Caesar type moment when he's conquering lands or addressing the Senate. I'm into history, particularly ancient history. So going back and seeing someone like that in all their glory, I think would be where I'd have to go. Just sort of drink it all in and see what happens.
Yeah, nice. It's funny how most people say backwards. I'm like, I'd rather go to the future. Hey, just see what's going to happen and how things advance. But the majority of people want to go back. It's interesting. No, it's good.
I guess with the future, you just don't know what you're going to get. And I'd probably be nervous about what you might see as well. You go to the future, it's like a nuclear wasteland. You're like, right, okay.
I was going to say, is the world still even there? Yeah.
Whereas you go back, you're sort of, you can guarantee you're going somewhere that you think you're going to find interesting, but get to see some of it and see how it operates.
Yeah, true. That is true. Good stuff. All right. Well, we're not here to talk about history. We're here to talk about marketing. You are not your words, but my words, a marketing expert, and you have a lot of great stuff to share with the audience. So tell us a little bit about your origins, how you got started in business, and what you're up to now, and then we'll dig into some more questions.
Sure. So I sort of started in marketing through Google AdWords, as it was called then, through PPC. And I suppose I could go a little bit further back than that. Whilst I was sort of at university, I was that classic guy that was trying to sell things online, sell things via eBay, things like video games and sports clothing and all sorts of little bits and bobs. I got those sorts of ideas in my head and tried to sell those. And then I realized quite quickly, okay, I don't know how to, I bought a load of stock and I was like, I don't know how to sell this. So then dived into the world of actually, how do you go about marketing something? How do you sell something? Found Google AdWords as it was and dove into that. I bought a couple of courses on it, really sort of went quite deep. And sort of started educating myself around how I was going to sell my product. And in the process, just sort of completely forgot about the products I was trying to sell and more got into that side of things, as you do. I actually went and worked for a company and did their marketing for them. So did their pay-per-click and created websites for them and all that sort of stuff. And then on the side, sort of really started getting interested in Facebook advertising. And this is probably now 5-6 years ago. Really started getting Facebook advertising. Obviously, it looks very different now to what it did back then. But again, went through a process of educating myself, took on a couple of clients on the side whilst I was still working a job, really enjoyed that, built that up, got more clients, quit the job, started my business. And for the last coming up on 5 years now. That's what I've been doing ever since. It's been growing a Facebook advertising agency, basically.
Yeah, and that's, I think, what I like about you is that there's a lot of people talking about it, but you're actually doing it.
Sure.
And so talk to us a little bit before we dive into Facebook marketing, because I really want to explore. I know that you have clients that have e-commerce businesses, and
Yep.
a big sort of sector of our audience would be running physical product brands, growing those. And so I'd love to, dive into that a little bit. But before we do, just tell us a little bit about your agency in terms of, maybe if you're happy sharing it, like number of clients you're working with, or, the team,
Sure.
the size of things, just to, just show people, not that you need to, because the knowledge that you share will prove it, but just, talk to us a bit about the agency.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem. So we're really quite a specialist company, and there's most agencies are much more sort of multifaceted, where they will offer website design and SEO, a bit of social media. We're not like that. We're very much Facebook advertising, Instagram advertising focused. We've got a team of 8 of us that are our core account managers that are day in, day out in Facebook ad accounts, creating campaigns, things like that. And then I've got, I think I said previously, looking at around about 20 people with graphic designers and assistants and analytics people that come in and out and help us do various things. Working with, I don't know the number of clients, dozens of different clients' campaigns. Because we're quite specialist on Facebook and Instagram advertising, we tend to work with sort of businesses that have a certain threshold of spend. So they usually come to us once they've got some experience on the platform themselves, or worked with another agency and they've thought, this is something that could be really big for our business. We want to take it to the next level. That's usually when they start working with us. Once they already know the platform can work, and we look to scale it up. So we have clients spending, relatively low budgets, getting started working with us, all the way up to spending more than $100,000 a month. And that's one of the great things about a platform like Facebook, is that there's so many people on it that if you work out something that works, you really can scale it, and it can do amazing things to grow our business. So yeah.
That's awesome. Does it make you nervous managing 6 figures a month in spend?
It did, not anymore. I'm used to it now. So I think across our clients, we're more than $1 million a month in total spend. Wow. And there are times sometimes when you look at a campaign, or you launch a new campaign, let's say it's a new product or a new offer, and you're spending $3,000 or $4,000 a day, and you're 2 days in and it doesn't look like it's working. You're thinking, oh, okay, there's something we need to do about this. But I think you just get used to it, and it's one of those where when you launch something new at those sorts of budget levels, you've normally got a lot of experience in selling what they have to offer. So you have a pretty good idea that, okay, even if this is a momentary blip, we know this is going to work over the long run. Yeah. So it's not quite so nervous. When we're getting started with most companies, they're starting at lower levels to sort of test the waters and try things out.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Inspiring, man. That's a great journey, and congrats to you for the success. That's awesome.
Thanks a lot.
So let's talk about the marketing in and of itself. What I'd love to do, just in the sort of the short time that we have, is to sort of look at it from a top level perspective. What are the overarching principles that you've discovered in your experience with running this agency and all of this traffic that brands can utilize in order to be successful with ads? And then maybe just dive into some more unique or even lower level sort of on the ground, boots on the ground kind of strategies that are working right now, especially in the current climate. And I know there's always loads of changes going on with Facebook, but what's working right now?
Sure. So I think from a top level, that one thing that people definitely do with Facebook and any sort of social media marketing, but definitely with Facebook as well, is they sort of throw out the standard marketing rules, and they think it's all about the technical settings and the little gimmicks to grab people's attention, and all those pieces have their place. But I think whenever you're setting up a campaign, you're thinking about marketing products and services, you need to start with the fundamentals of core marketing principles. Right. Things like, do you have something that people actually want to buy? Can you create an offer that is substantially better than what the competition are offering? Some of the really simple things at the very top level that can make such a big difference throughout the campaign, no matter how you set it up from a technical standpoint. I think those are often forgotten, and we often have conversations with clients where we're saying, look, have you thought about running a discount for this month on this product? Have you thought about bundling in this offer? Have you thought about offering a finance package on this $3,000 e-commerce product that perhaps people don't want to fork up all the money for up front? So just establishing core marketing principles of having something desirable, I think is probably underrated. And that needs to be established before you get into the nitty gritty and the little steps.
Yeah, no, brilliant advice. And it's something that I think, especially a lot of people with the growth of e-commerce and it becoming more popular, people think it's an easy business. I literally just got off a call with someone that's, thinking about starting a business, and he's saying, are the good days over? And I'm like, no, the good days aren't over. The easy days are over. If you want to just throw something cheap and cheerful on and make a load of money, it's not going to happen. But if you build a good quality product, the world's your oyster, So I think you're absolutely spot on.
And that sort of setup where you've got, the easy days, they never last. So you could have said the same about Google AdWords in the early 2000s. It was the easy days. But of course, the easy days, you throw up an ad for a mediocre product, you generate loads of sales, and then everyone else hears about that. They start advertising on the platform. That increases competition, which increases costs. And you can no longer get by having a mediocre product. You need something that people actually want. And the same's happened with Facebook advertising. So, probably a decade later than when it happened on Google, but the same process has happened in that we're now seeing that Facebook and Instagram ads is a mature market, in that we're not seeing a constantly increasing cost. It's very stable, and it's reached a natural equilibrium where the good companies offering good stuff and the high quality advertisers are winning, and the ones that don't meet that criteria aren't. It's not one of those where you can just throw up an ad and it works no matter what. It's about the skill and what you're offering as to whether you're going to be successful or not.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually. So you would say that those costs, like you say, have stabled, and you don't see much continuing growth in that cost to advertise on Facebook?
Yeah. Over the last, I would say, 2 years, costs have been very stable. We've got clients we've been working with that whole time, and we can look at their campaigns. And I tend to look on a per impression basis, because your cost of conversion can be determined by so many other factors. But your per impression basis gives you a good indication of just how expensive the platform is to advertise on. And a lot of those businesses are very, very stable, particularly obviously in markets like the UK, US, sort of more established markets. Might be a bit different in some of the developing countries that are probably later to the Facebook advertising game than others. I would say costs in general are very, very stable. Obviously right now with, I don't know exactly when it's going to be published, but with coronavirus and all that sort of stuff, we've actually seen the opposite. So we've seen all the sort of local businesses, gyms, restaurants, all pause their campaigns. That's reduced competition. We've seen costs come down. So right now, I would say a lot of our clients are operating at a 30% discount. A lot of e-commerce businesses are still advertising. They're getting ads for about 30% cheaper than they usually would, because all the local businesses have stopped for now. But that's unlikely to continue, I suppose, as time goes on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's an interesting, thought you talk about in terms of the skill and the, what it takes to have a successful ad. And that's something I think would be good to talk about, because in my experience in trying to help people get started with stuff like online marketing, it's that first hurdle to get over that's the hardest. They try it once and it doesn't work, and they think that the thing doesn't work, when it's probably more them that needs to upskill. So what would you say are the biggest mistakes that beginners make when they get started?
Yeah, that's absolutely one of them, is not giving it enough time. And I think that's one of the big advantages that people have when they work with an agency, is that if we run campaigns for a client and after 3 days it's not working out, we can say to them, look, it's fine, this happens, that's just life. Okay, these ads, this messaging didn't quite work. Let's be willing to test some stuff out and go again. We can work this out. We've done that loads of times. So I think that is absolutely one of them. Just being willing to keep going. Just because it doesn't work the first time doesn't mean it won't work going forwards. I think another big mistake that I see a lot of Facebook advertisers make is they overcomplicate their sales funnel. Right. And this is probably one of the biggest things that I talk about. And I think it came about because 5-6 years ago, when Facebook advertising was a very different thing, you had a lot of experts saying things like, you can't advertise products and services directly on the platform. You have to build audiences, warm them up, etc., etc. And whilst there's value still in building warm audiences, you absolutely can sell products and services directly to cold audiences. Wow. And for a lot of businesses, that's the option they really should be taking, given the price of their products and things. So I think there's a lot of people that have, I get lots of questions from people that are saying, I've got this 5-step Facebook advertising sales funnel, and you think, right, okay, and they're sort of, getting someone to join an email list and then retargeting them with a video and then retargeting them if they've watched 50% or more of that video, and you're thinking, right, well, you're paying to advertise to those people at each one of those stages. If you're then going to try and sell them a £30 product, the maths can't work. So I think for a lot of businesses, simplifying the sales funnel and really focusing on that offer, focusing on the ad creative, is absolutely massive. I think that's something that can help a lot of people out, is just trying to go with a simple approach. Simple doesn't mean ineffective. In fact, often it can be the complete opposite. So that's another big mistake that I see people make. And then another one that comes to mind is not focusing enough on the ad creative.
Okay.
So I think that there's so much focus put on targeting and the various settings. If you run a Facebook ad campaign, you get into Ads Manager, you take a look at all the settings and you think, wow, it's overwhelming, it's really complicated. You probably jump on YouTube or somewhere else and you start Googling around, how do I set things up properly here? And I think that's all great. You need to have the settings set up correctly. But at the end of the day, the part that your prospect sees and the part of your ad campaign that's going to determine whether they buy your product, inquire for your service, is the ad itself. So I think for a lot of people, they get all the targeting set up, they get all the delivery settings sorted, and they forget about the actual ad. So I'm a big advocate of saying to people, look, if it means getting a professional photographer in to photograph your products, or a videographer in to video your message, or a graphic designer to put something really nice and sharp looking together, it's well worth it. Investing time and money into the ad creative, the part that your prospect sees, is something that I think a lot more people should do a lot more of.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think that's from my journey of learning, and with the with campaign budget optimization coming in, and it seems like Facebook really do want you to focus a lot more on the creative. Don't spend so much time analyzing all of those little bits of detail. Just focus on a good creative. Let the Facebook AI do the rest of the work, and really lean into that automation.
Definitely, and they're introducing tons of things, just like that, like campaign budget optimization and all sorts of other features where they basically recommend going with fairly automatic settings and just letting Facebook work it out. But the part they're never going to be able to do that with is the ad creative. And that's always going to be the part that really differentiates you from your competition, if you can put together really good ad creative.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting what you say about making offers to cold audiences, selling straight at that top of the funnel, because a lot, like you said, a lot of people that would say, don't do that. And that's like the cardinal sin of marketing these days. So I'd love to hear more from you about that. And maybe even with the context of, if there is someone out there that's selling a range of e-commerce products that are £20-30 and they want to really delve into that world of Facebook marketing, what would be, you said about simplifying the sales funnel. Do you have like a standard sales funnel that you would recommend to your clients that we could talk through? What kind of thing do you recommend?
That's a really good question. Okay, so in the first part of that, you're saying about people recommend having multi-step sales funnels and not directly selling. And I think where a lot of that comes from is that a lot of the people giving advice online, the sorts of businesses they're running, so a lot of the times these are going to be people selling coaching programs, online courses, things like that. Those are products that you cannot sell directly to cold audiences. You do need to warm people up, to build audiences, to be able to sell those. But they don't have experience selling £30 products, or selling a roofer's services or something like that. And I think that that's something that I've been able to do differently with my content. I talk to other people that own Facebook ads agencies. Is we see a lot of the advice out there, and you go, yeah, but we've got e-commerce clients selling $10 products that would never work for. So I think that's why it has come about, and that's why it's sort of talked about a lot in the industry. But I think when you actually get in there and you're running dozens of different campaigns at any one time, you sort of start to see, okay, that's not right, and that won't work, and things like that. So I think that's where it comes from. That's where it comes back. So whenever I think that's really important for anyone looking at any digital marketing is, okay, if you're listening to someone giving advice about Facebook advertising or anything, does their advice apply to your scenario? Because it's very easy to hear of a brand new webinar sales funnel that works really well for a £5,000 coaching program, but that just would not at all for a £50 service. I think that's massive. So in terms of a sales funnel, for a lot of e-commerce companies, I think in my mind, the way I like to split it is how expensive are the products that you're selling. So if they are, I use $100 as basically a cutoff point. I go back between pounds and dollars. Hopefully that's not
Yeah, it's a
confusing.
nightmare, isn't it?
We got clients in UK, US, everywhere. So I sort of go between lots of different currencies.
Yeah.
But at $100, which is probably what, £80, something like that, it is in my mind a cutoff point where if the price of what you're selling is beneath that, I would recommend spending the majority of your budget on a direct to offer campaign. Right. By that I mean a very, very simple Facebook ad campaign. Put a Facebook ad in front of someone, maybe offer a discount, incentivize them to take action in some way, get them to come directly through to your website and buy. If your product is above that point, let's say above $100, £80, something like that, let's say it's going to be £200-300, I don't think you can quite get away with that one interaction. I think you need to put something in front. And the simplest thing I would start with would be basically a lead magnet campaign. So we'd be running a Facebook ad campaign to get someone onto an email list. We'd use a lead magnet, so some sort of free giveaway, could be a guide, a report, something very much related to the products you're advertising. And then once people have joined the email list, we would be retargeting those people with another campaign to get them to buy the product. And of course, you can run email marketing campaigns as well to help convince them to buy. But I think if you're above that, let's say $100 mark, that's the next strategy I'd be looking to do. One thing I'll mention about that is for both of those, let's say a business is in either one of those camps, I think some of your budget wants to be dedicated to long-term brand building and audience building.
Sure.
Because I think that is, let's say, for example, you might see that you're running a direct to offer strategy and you're generating conversions that are slightly profitable. Well, the way you can turn that into a much more profitable Facebook ad campaign is to build that warm audience so that in a year's time, 2 years' time, when you're running the same campaigns, you're doing it to people that have already had exposure to your brand, and you see your cost per conversion half, maybe even more. And that makes a big difference. So I think that's how I would structure Facebook advertising for most e-commerce businesses.
Yeah, sure. A couple of follow-up questions on that. You've got your obviously top of funnel cold audience you're targeting with that offer. Would you then say that based on that strategy, you wouldn't do any further retargeting, or do you still continue to do that retargeting?
It depends on the products being offered. If there are very natural sort of cross-sells and upsells that people didn't take during a checkout process, then absolutely we'd be retargeting the people that buy. We'd also automatically be retargeting with exactly the same offer anyone, for example, that comes to the website but doesn't go ahead and buy.
Right.
So we'd be making sure, even though that would still technically top of funnel because they haven't gone through a layer, if that makes sense. They haven't actually taken an action other than just coming to the website and leaving, but we'd also be making sure we retarget those people.
Yeah, great. And then in terms of the brand awareness, what do you think of brand awareness ads, the objective in Facebook? Do you use them much?
Not really, no. From what I've seen, unless you're going to operate with really quite a large budget, they tend to not have a huge amount of impact, particularly in the short run. If you have quite a large budget, then being able to put, let's say, thousands of pounds a month behind a brand awareness campaign that you're not expecting to see much of a return from for, let's say, 3, maybe even 6 months, then they can start to have an improvement, have an effect on your other campaigns. But no, that's not typically where I dedicate a lot of, let's say, brand and audience building budgets. There's probably 2 areas that I recommend to most people to put their, let's say they want to dedicate 10% of their overall budget or 20% of their overall budget to building an audience. There's 2 main audiences I like people to focus on. That's an email list and a Facebook group. Right. So when I think about building a warm audience, those are the 2 things I'm usually focusing on.
Gotcha. And so what are some of the objectives that you are using for that top of funnel one? You'd go straight to conversion?
Yeah, conversions. Yeah.
Yep. And then in terms of, go on.
I was going to say, we're nearly always using conversions. I'd say 90% of our campaigns are conversion campaigns. Yeah. And I think that's also that's probably another big Facebook advertising mistake that people make quite a lot, is they run traffic campaigns and thinking that they're brand new pixel, brand new ad account, something like that. They don't have enough conversion data to run conversions. We've actually tested that loads, even with brand new ad accounts. And what we find is that conversions nearly always works the best from day one. And my theory on that is that whilst Facebook doesn't have much data when you start a new ad campaign on who is going to convert for your product and service, they just know the sort of person that's likely to buy, that sort of product that you're offering. So they can put your ads in front of that sort of person if you choose the conversions objective and optimize for, let's say, purchases, as opposed to using the traffic objective or something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you do hear a lot of people say that you need to have X amount of conversions before you optimize for that in order to train the pixel. And so I think what you're saying is definitely similar to what I'm seeing in terms of the just the Facebook algorithm and the AI, and just like you say, it's kind of got this scary ability of knowing the right person at the right time. And it's pretty scary.
We had a crazy example of this the other day where the tracking wasn't set up properly. So we took over a client's ad account, and we switched from a traffic campaign to a conversions campaign optimizing for purchases. Now the tracking wasn't set up properly on their back end, and we had a look at the data after a week, and even though within the ad account we were showing 0 purchases because as I said, the tracking wasn't set up properly, we actually still generated a lot more purchases that week than we had with the traffic campaign, because as I said, we basically told Facebook, look, we want you to run ads that are going to get us purchases, and they're just able to work out this sort of person purchases, therefore put ads in front of those people. And I think there was about twice as many sales as usual, which was the most crazy example of that ever. So even the tracking wasn't set up, and they still managed to work it out. So there you go.
Definitely. And I think, it removes a lot of the overwhelm, I think, for people with e-commerce brands, particularly if they've got a few products to start selling. The advice you're giving today, get started with a conversion campaign. Oh, that's a lot easier than a lot of people make it sound, to get started.
Yeah, and you can track the return on investment much easier that way. If you're running a traffic campaign for a month and then looking to retarget those people, you won't know whether you're wasting money for quite a long time period. Whereas if you run a conversion campaign from day one, you'll be able to know after, let's say, a week, okay, we spent this much, we generated this much, how's that performing? Do we need to make adjustments, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. All right, final question then, before I let you go, because I know you're trying to run a business out there, but sure. Just in terms of the ad creatives, can you give us some, just some tips on what you've seen? Obviously, you would do a lot of testing with this. You would see, hundreds of campaigns every week. What are some of the fundamentals, aside from good quality product? What are the fundamentals for ad creative that people need to be considering?
Sure. So when it comes to imagery and things like that, well, the first thing I would say is that video isn't always best, which I think is often assumed to be that video ad is always going to produce best results. Again, it depends on what you're advertising. If you're advertising a service-based business that's got something fairly complex that needs explaining, then yes, video is going to work best. But if you're advertising an inexpensive product, often a static image will perform best, because someone can take a glance at that and they'll understand exactly what it is and whether they're interested or not. Whereas a video, someone has to spend the time to watch it. That's the first thing I'd say on the ad creative, is that video isn't always best. It does depend on the business. And when we work with clients, what we really like to do is test a lot of different ad formats to see which performs best. And that's what I recommend most people do, is test a lot of ad formats. In terms of imagery itself, you want things that are colorful, that are going to stand out in the news feed. It does make a difference. We've had graphic designers literally just make something that was just a boring shade of blue a bright yellow, and you can see an increase in conversions based off of that. Yeah. Having on your ad creative, on your imagery, on your video, or maybe even you're using carousel slideshows, highlighting the number one benefit associated with your product is a really easy thing to do that can help boost conversions. Okay. So if your product is fantastic because it's cheaper than the alternatives, or if it's got an additional feature, or whatever it happens to be, maybe it saves people time, pop that, in just a few words. You want to be under that 20% text rule, but pop that on the image. That can make a big difference. And then when it comes to, some of the copy and the headlines and things, I like to keep things very, very simple. And whenever you're looking at your Facebook ad, you always want to be thinking, okay, when my prospect looks at this ad, they're scrolling through, there's tons of distractions, they don't care in the slightest about my ad. They have to understand what it's about immediately. So keeping things simple and just highlighting the one or two benefits that your product can really give people is one thing I'd really recommend.
Yeah, super helpful. Definitely going to help a lot of people out there. Really, really good thoughts. If you could, awesome. Just to summarize and just to finish up, if you could give people out there that are just sort of getting started with Facebook marketing, if you give them sort of one bit of takeaway advice, your kind of golden nugget to make sure they implement, what do you think that would be?
Good question. one bit of advice would probably be, it's sort of tangential to Facebook advertising in that the initial transaction isn't the whole journey that you have with a customer.
Right.
This particularly applies to e-commerce businesses. A lot of people want, really want to generate a very nice profit on that first transaction. But if you can be willing to run an ad campaign that acquires customers, let's say at break even, that can be incredibly profitable for you over the long run by being able to retarget those people, by being able to follow up via email and things like that. So there's tons of large companies that we see offer amazing introductory offers, and people sort of think, okay, well, they're a big company, they've got lots of money, they can afford to run these introductory offers. And I'd sort of flip that often, and I say, look, maybe they're a big company because they have this amazing introductory offer and they're able to acquire an enormous amount of customers that they know they might break even, they might not make a lot of money from in that first transaction, but guess what, over the next 6 months, years, however long, they're going to make a lot of profit. So I think if you're running an e-commerce business, if you can acquire customers break even on that first transaction, you have a very, very profitable business when you're able to subsequently sell again and again to those prospects. So I think that's something that I always try and get across to people. So I think that's really important. Yeah,
that's brilliant advice. Really, really good. Listen, Ben, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on, and there's been some absolute value bombs. I'm sure there's people that will be going back and listening to this a few times over to get everything out of it. So we massively appreciate it. If people want to sort of find out a bit more about what you do, and even potentially if they want to explore the idea of using your services, where could they find out more about you, Ben?
Yeah, so just want to head to my website, which is leadguru, leadguru.co.uk. And yeah, it's got it all there. So it's got details about our services. There's also a free training I've got up in, you can find it in the header. There's basically a free webinar that goes through sales funnels and strategies that I recommend. So if people are wanting to advertise on Facebook and take it to the next level, I'd strongly recommend people go through that completely free. So yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, that's awesome. Well, you heard it here first, guys. Go check that out. Check the training out. Check out more about Ben. And Ben, thank you so much for coming on the show today, and wish you well for that next season of your agency.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks a lot, and best of luck to you too.
Hey, well, thanks so much for being with us on the Impact Unlimited podcast today. If the content has helped you in any way, please reach out. We would love to hear from you. Tag us on the socials if anything has inspired you from this episode. And listen, if you've got 2 minutes to spare, we'd love it if you'd leave us a review on your chosen podcast platform. Honestly, we'd be forever grateful. And to show that, when you do, be sure to enter our monthly appreciation prize draw, where we give away Amazon vouchers to our podcast community. Simply head to impactunlimited.com/podcast. That's impactunlimited.com/podcast in order to find out all the information as well as explore more free training content. Listen, it's been a pleasure. And remember, don't just make an income, make an impact. All right, we'll see you next week.